A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to Wales. Early autumn here in Wales, and I'm out trying to get as many photos as I possibly can of this time of year. I'm going away next week, which is probably ill-advised, to be honest, given that I've spent quite a lot of the year scouting for autumn locations. But nevertheless, I'll try and get what I can today. Anyway, while I do that, what I thought I'd do is talk about a bit of a photography tip that I've been thinking about an awful lot recently. And it's all to do with the phrase, if your photo's not good enough, you're not close enough, or something to that effect, which I'm sure many of us have heard. Now that concept, I think, my interpretation of it, is all to do with the fact that if we're too far from our subject, or if we use too wide a focal length, then we'll include lots of distracting elements that therefore dilute the impact of our subject or the more interesting parts of the frame. And it's quite a common thing for photographers to do, to want to include loads and loads of stuff because they see lots of interesting things. But actually by doing that, you're really just reducing the impact of your image, because as I say, you're including lots of distracting elements and you're making it much harder for the viewer to try and work out exactly what they should be looking at. Now there are a couple of remedies to this, a couple of obvious remedies. You could use depth of field, shallow depth of field, to make sure the viewer knows exactly what they're supposed to be looking at. You could use things like shadows to make sure that you funnel people's eyes towards what they should be looking at. You could use things like leading lines, all kinds of techniques you can use, but the most popular one is to either get closer to your subject or to use a longer focal length to make sure that there's less stuff in the image and therefore it becomes more obvious what it is you should be focusing on as a viewer of a photo. So when we are in a place like this, for example, what we'll typically do as photographers is we'll start out, for instance here, let me just record this, at 16mm. So yes, we'll start out at 16mm that looks something like this. And then very bravely, what we'll do is we'll decide that that is a little bit too wide. So we'll zoom maybe to something like, what's that? 20mm, and we'll decide that is the focal length for the shot. Now let me just take a shot there so I can explain what I'm talking about. That, I think, really is still a little bit wide for showing the maximum impact of the more interesting parts of the frame, i.e. the road and the hill right at the top there. And the problem is that even though we need to get closer to our subject more often than not, we do get a little bit zoom shy because we're still thinking, oh, I don't really want to lose that and other stuff that's all around the frame. Now my solution is that rather than trying to zoom in very, very tentatively, what we should be doing is starting at the long end of our lens and zooming out until we get a flavour of the stuff that we want to include. And that way we'll often end up with a longer focal length, a better focal length for more impactful photos than we would if we started at the wide end of our lens and zoomed in. And that's because we're less likely to be going, oh, I don't really want to go any further than that, we'll stop there. So yes, in this instance, we'll start at 35 and we'll work out exactly what focal length is right for the image. Okay, so this is 35mm. Bear in mind that you're looking at a 16:9 crop because this is a video. But if I just zoom out to something like that, then I end up with the top of the tree on the right, which I think looks pretty good. And I would determine that that is the correct focal length to shoot this scene. And in case you're wondering, this is 28mm. So yeah, rather than starting wide and zooming in, start long and zoom out. And often, I think you'll end up with a focal length that is a bit more agreeable to impactful photos. Yeah. This scene here, I think, is a pretty good example of what I'm on about, this S-curve in this road. Let me hit record on the A7R, and I can show you what I'm on about. Right, so here is the scene that I'm talking about. You can see the S-curve in the road, all looks very nice, but the scene is currently being ruined by all this sky. And even if you were to expose for the sky, you then have to lift the shadows in everything that's interesting in the scene, and it just wouldn't work. So clearly the answer here is zooming in to, let's say, 20mm. No, it still doesn't fix it. 24mm. No. 28mm, getting better. 35mm, much better still. And yeah, I think that works a treat. Now bear in mind that this again is a 16:9 crop purely because this is a video clip. So let me just get an image. Yes, very nice, I think. I like the way that the road sort of winds around the tree. Now, admittedly, I did come to the conclusion that that was a 35mm shot after zooming in from 16mm, so it didn't really harm me there, but it would have been quicker for me to zoom out. Mostly actually because it was as I say, a 35mm shot, and it wouldn't have required any zooming out because I'm shooting on the 16-35. So terrible example, that one actually. But yes, in short, I think it's much easier and quicker to add to a scene by zooming out than subtracting from a scene or zooming in. So yeah, I'll shut up about that now, and I'll just get on with some photography. Right, well, this looks like another shot that I reckon is probably about 35mm, on the basis that I don't want to include any of the sky above the ridgeline up there. Let's have a look. 35mm, yes. Pointing the camera pretty much dead straight ahead. Polarizer firmly on today because there's lots of wet foliage. Something like that. Lovely stuff. In fact, I could probably go a little bit wider than that. Let's see. Could probably go to about 33mm before I have to start tilting the camera just down, basically, to avoid the sky. And actually, that being the case, I probably should shoot at 33mm because it's good practice to shoot at 1 or 2 mils wider than you actually want, just so you've got some more leniency when it comes to cropping and playing around with aspect ratios, that kind of thing. What we want to avoid though is shooting 10 mils wider than we actually want for the most impactful photos. So yes, I'm not going to say it again. Zooming out, it's good way to do it. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually in a bit of a grump today. I found a spider in my office this morning, or a spider found me, and I'm not a spider person, as macho as I look. Why are you laughing? Yeah, I know I look tough, eating my malt loaf, but don't like spiders. And I lived in Australia. I don't really know how I did that. Every time I go to Australia, I don't sleep because I think I'm going to get eaten. Not a good morning. What a lovely spot for a cottage. Very nice. Anyway, today is basically an insurance policy. When I was here yesterday, I was convinced that we were still sort of 3 to 4 weeks away from the best of the conditions. But then when I was driving home last night, I kind of thought, maybe stuff's turning quicker than I thought. So today I thought I'd come and just try and get a few more photos in the bank along this route, because there's some lovely spots, just in case by the time I get back to Wales, all the leaves are on the floor and it's winter. I mean, I'm only going for a couple of weeks, but you never know. A few windy days, a cold snap, things might change fast. So I thought I'd come and get some photos to put in the bank now, in case everything's all finished by the time I get home. Well, I mean, you know how I was saying the other week that I'm a big fan of having human-made elements in scenes. Doesn't really get much better than this. I don't know if anyone's about, so I'll keep my voice down. Doesn't look particularly busy, but I don't want to trespass. Nope, not electric, that's good. Okay. Beautiful. I'll tell you one thing that I've realised through the course of the last couple of years, which I wouldn't have realised without the last couple of years, is just how little I feel the need to travel at the moment. I'm super lucky to live near a national park, very lucky with that, but I come out a lot around these parts, and every single time I do, I find something different, something noteworthy, something that I think is worth photographing, which makes me hopeful that I've got years and years here, decades even, of discovery before I even have chance to think about getting bored and needing to find other stuff. I mean, I will travel. I'm very fortunate I get opportunities to, but doesn't matter where you live, there is good stuff on your doorstep. And I get a lot of emails from people who say that they don't have stuff on their doorstep, things that they consider decent. But I promise you, no matter where you live, someone who lives on the opposite side of the world to where you live will find where you live interesting. I promise you that. What is that? A bathtub. Oh my God. Sketchiest ladder I've ever been on. Not really my cup of tea, photographically, that. I mean, it's pretty and all, and if I wanted to visit a hospital, I'd walk along that death trap walkway, but I don't particularly, so I'm not going to stick a bright layer on and put myself in that image. Not today anyway. Maybe if they rebuild it, get a better ladder, I might consider it. There's a lot of places around here that look like that. Rivers, basically. But yeah, too busy for my tastes. Ugh. Shut up. Well, to tell you the truth, some of this drone footage is a bit concerning. It's oranger than it was yesterday, unless I just wasn't paying attention yesterday, which could well be the case. It's also more orange with my own eyes when I get brave enough to stand by the edge. Did you see me in any of those drone shots, by the way? I did get quite close to the edge, till I realised how far down it was. Anyway, yes, I suppose we'll see if the peak of autumn comes while I'm away on holiday. I'm going away with Emily and Noah for the first time, little family holiday, which I can't wait for, but I'm just a bit sad that I may well miss autumn, having been excited for it for so long. Still, like I said, I'll be here for many years, so if I don't get it this year, yeah, I'll get it another year. Also, do you like my bottle? Look how blue it is. Matches my coat. It's the only colour they had, and that goes for both the coat and the bottle. And the coat is quite handy for hanging yourself off cliffs in photos. Can make it any colour I want in Photoshop. Anyway, I'm waffling on. Time to try and get back to the car. Well, I'm nearly back at the car. You might be able to hear the road down there, and a largely successful day, I think, getting early autumn photos. Everything will be better in a couple of weeks, definitely, but hopefully things don't peak before I get back, because I would cry. Anyway, a big thank you for watching, and also a huge thank you to this week's video sponsor, Squarespace. And I'm sure by now many of you know exactly what Squarespace is, but it's a fantastic solution for photographers looking to get their work out online, and perhaps even looking to sell their work online as well, whether it's calendars, books, prints, whatever. I've used Squarespace for years. I absolutely love it, and I've not needed to know a single line of code to set up my entire website, my entire online store, or to send out newsletters to my audience either. And if you think having an online portfolio could help you, I would definitely recommend checking out Squarespace. And if you'd like a free trial, then just go to squarespace.com to set out your images and see how they look on a website. It's a wonderful process. Definitely recommend it. It can be quite exciting. And after that, if you'd like to make a purchase, then just go to squarespace.com/James and you'll get 10% off that first purchase. So that's pretty good too. Just checking to see if the leaves have turned any yellower in that 30 seconds. Don't know what I'm looking here anyway. Hardly any of these trees are deciduous. Anyway, yes, a big thank you for watching and for your support with the book. It's much appreciated. And thank you to Squarespace as well for their continued support of this channel. Right, back home.